We are looking to enhance the Wordle project from the YByte Python curriculum available at www.ybyte.in. Having seen how the help function works, now let's focus our attention on the hint. Now, before I write any code, let's just kind of revisit what we want to do. Basically, the idea is that when we ask for a hint, we first figure out which are the letters that have been guessed so far, because giving a hint on those letters doesn't make sense. Next, we pick up a letter which comes on any other position. So, for example, let's say we see that letter number 0 and letter number 3 have been guessed. Well, we will pick up a letter which is either 1, 2, or 4. So, any one letter from these positions, we will update the hint label. And then, of course, because we're giving only one help, one hint, we will go and disable the hint button. Let's see how we do this in a step-by-step manner. Get back to my code over here. So, we do have this hint button right now. But first thing I must figure out which are the letters that have been guessed, and that is not hard. That have been guessed correctly. That is not hard, because remember, there is this particular piece of code where every letter that has been guessed correctly is being identified, and the label is being created. Now the important point to understand is that this kk goes in the range 0 1 2 3 4, which means that when we are identifying the correct letter, in fact, we know the index of that particular letter that has been guessed. So all we need to do is, we'll keep track of these answers. So I'll just create, let's say, a list here called, let's say, answer, say decided. So what I mean is, like, those positions where the answer, the guess has been correctly done, which means that on those positions we are clear what is the word, right? So remember, this happens inside this, let's say, basically this piece of the code where I'm turning the label as green, and I just go and say, well, answer decided dot append, say, kk. So what this is going to do is that as the game runs, basically my answer decided is going to be, for example, in this case right now it's going to be an empty list, but the moment I decide a correct letter at the right position, my answer decided will basically hold that particular number. Now if you recall, this is a little bit similar to what we were doing in our hangman project long time back in Scratch, where we kept track of the answer as it kind of formed, right? So similar idea. Now, before moving forward, let's sort of see this working. So I just get to my code and I, just put a statement called, let's say, print, say, answer decided. So this will give us a visualization of how this whole thing is coming together. When I run this piece of code, this time around, the word is floss. Now, let's just, go with my regular order. So let's say music, so I know S is there, but not in the right position. Let's say, party, I guess party. Now, nothing was correct. I try honed. I look at this again, nothing was correct, right? So if I look at my shell right now, I'm printing an empty list, remember, because answer decided is still empty. I haven't yet guessed any of the letters. Now, let's say I, come in here, and since I know the word, let me just try to, let's say I say, well, the word, let me try horse, right? HORSE. Now I know O and S are there. When I do this, now you notice that, look, O is still in the wrong position, but S now is in the right place. When I look at my answer detected, it tells me answer decided, it tells me 3, because remember, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So basically what it's telling me is that, look, at this index, I already know what the letter is. So please do not give me a hint on this letter. So that's the whole. Now we'll see how we can make use of this. So I, having, let's say, updated my answer decided, list, I get to my function get hint. Now remember, now obviously hint is meaningful only when I have not completely guessed the word. So I just put a small little condition here. I'm saying that, look, if length of, say, answer, decided is less than 5, which means I'm still in the process of deciding, finding out what the word is. Remember, now my job is to pick up any one index which is not in the answer decided. So I just do this, kind of similar to what we had done earlier for the help case. So I just go and say n is, let's say, random, dot, say, rand int, say, for example, um, 0 to 4. So I just pick up a random number between 0 and 4. Now, while n in, let's say, answer decided, so if n is part of answer decided, we'll keep doing this. Let's say n is equal to random, so n is equal to random, dot rand int between, say, 0 and 4. So it's, I mean, there are many ways we can do this, but basically the idea behind this is that, look, I will find out a random number which is not yet a part of that list, which is answer decided. Now, In case I click the hint button when the game is already over. So one way would have been that look, once the game gets over, I can go and disable the help and the hint button. But I can just, let's say, do something like this. So I can go and say, well, look, if this happens, I will print, let's say, a message called text equals to no longer needed, right? So I mean, obviously you don't need a hint anymore. Now, having, let's say, obtained the number of the index of the letter that I want to give as a hint, now basically it's a time for me to form this particular label. So I will just use a text here to do that. So I just go and, let's say, create a variable called so say display text, text as an empty string. Now remember, this text I want to display as, for example, in this case, dash 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 S, and perhaps if I want to give a hint on E, E. So when I'm telling you, like, look, this is the letter that I'm telling you, and this letter had already been guessed. So basically, I just want to go and go form this text by going again letter by letter. I just write a for loop here. I go and say for KK in range, let's say 5, because we are dealing with 5-letter words. If KK in answer decided, so if KK is basically already been guessed, so that's in part of the answer decided, or if KK is equal to n. Remember, n has been chosen here as a random number that random letter that I'm going to sort of display. If either of these conditions is true, well, display text is equal to display text plus chosen word KK, and plus I can put a space here, right? So basically a single space. If this is not the case, well, basically if this is not the case, I'm going to just keep it, so if the letter has not been guessed and it's not also been chosen, well, in that case my display text is nothing but, say, display text plus an empty, let's say, a space, and with that underscore, right? So this will basically make sure that my display comes correctly. And having done this, I'm going to just use my, okay, so hint label dot config, right? So I just go and say, well, hint label dot config should be nothing but the display text, right? So if I just go and say display text, and obviously having given a hint once, I am going to disable my hint button, dot, let's say, so it's state, I'm going to say, well, please make it tk dot disable, right? Because hint has been given, right? So let me just write small little comments here. Pick a letter not yet correctly guessed and form the label. Say form the label. Now we'll see this working. Now when I run this piece of code, so the word is wrath, like anger. Let's try to see if we can solve this. So I go with my regular sequence party. Well, I get T in the right place. Let's say I go and say, well, let's say music. So doesn't help. Honed. All right. So there's TARNH, but only T is the right place. So I think I want to get a hint at this point of time. Let's say I click on hint. You notice it tells me the letter it has told me is H. Basically, it's told me that H is in this position, and T has come in because T had already been guessed. So it looks at that TH, right? Now, one thing you can do, and it'll be quite nice, is that we can give a different color to these labels. So, for example, in this if condition here, if K is an answer decided, I can display it as maybe, let's say, black color. And if KK is equal to 1, so I can have a separate condition where I go and display this in another color. So then it becomes a bit more clear that I'm giving that letter as a hint, right? So, obviously I know this H is here, which means A and R must be in these places, right? So, and this kind of helps. Of course, I can go and take a help again. It will go and further remove 3 letters. So this makes it really nice. We know that the only letters yet to be tried are B, G, J, K, Q, W, X, and Z, right? So the hint has been taken, help has been taken, but obviously I can move ahead and solve this problem. Now, just one change before I move forward, before I wrap this up. Remember the hint button, rather the hint label. We are showing it as hint text. I'm going to make it empty to start with, right? So that in the beginning it's empty. When I do take a hint, it just displays this letter. I hope this has been interesting. This has been clear. Once again, building activities, thinking about how we can meaningfully enhance them is a great way to learn programming. Look at our website www.ybyte.in. because at YByte, that is how we learn Python programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.